much travel, at least on my part, and we welcome you to our half-hour show today. With me today, it's a great pleasure to have one of my OSU Extension colleagues, Jeff McCutcheon, and to visit with us today. And Jeff, we just welcome you and would like to give you an opportunity to give a little bit of background about yourself. I think that you're definitely a person that knows this region, and once you give that introduction, I think our audience will understand better how I can say that.
Okay. Well, my name is Jeff McCutcheon. I'm currently the regional director for the southeast region of Ohio. Previous to that, I was a county educator in Morrow and before that in Knox counties. My background, I grew up in southern West Virginia. Got my BS and Masters from WVU. Came to Ohio seeking employment and extension. That was successful and very beneficial. And from there, I found the opportunity to pursue my education a little further. In the animal science department, I recently received a PhD in animal science.
Great.
So focused on ruminant nutrition, but really the aspect of that I was focused on was grazing, which is very applicable to this region.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Jeff, I think it's a great background that you bring, and I just want to follow up a little bit. I think you grew up on a family farm, if I'm not mistaken, and you focused on a certain species of livestock down there.
We had milk dairy cows in southeastern West Virginia, and then to help pay for college, I commercially sheared sheep pretty much over West Virginia, Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
You know, just to help pay the bills.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And get through college.
I'm sure I've never sheared a sheep, but I'm always intrigued by it. But I'm sure it's something like riding a bicycle. You never forget.
You never forget, but recently when I've sheared a few, I quickly realized how rusty I am.
You probably got reminded the next day those muscles that you haven't used in a while.
Yeah, it'll stretch you in ways you didn't expect.
I am sure. Well, great, excellent background, and certainly a fit for this part of Ohio and how prevalent the beef industry is across southeastern Ohio, and really in all counties. There are certain pieces of farms that don't lend themselves to crop production, and the next best thing seems to be a small beef operation to take advantage of that kind of land. So it's concentrated definitely in southeast Ohio, but widespread. And Jeff brings an excellent background. He's going to talk a little bit further with us today. I think there's a program coming up that you mentioned before we got started, the Ohio Forage and Grassland Council. And maybe before you talk about just what's going to happen next week, I believe, on Friday, we'll kind of leave that to the a little bit later, but just help us understand what the council is and who makes up the council, how it might have gotten started, and what its purposes are.
Well, the Ohio Forage and Grassland Council is a group. It's a commodity group for forages.
Okay. So it's like the corn growers, but it's just focused
like the corn
on
growers. It's like the Cattlemen's Association or Sheep Improvement Association. It's the newest one of all of those.
Okay.
Actually, some names familiar to southeastern Ohio helped get it started.
Okay.
Ed Volburn.
Oh, wow.
Bob Evans.
Of course.
Earl McCarnes from eastern Ohio were instrumental. Bob Hendershot, the former NRCS state grassland conservationist.
All right.
We're all interested in having a voice for forages.
Sure.
The council is made up of industry personnel, producers, and academics.
Wow.
So it's a mix on the board, and it's to promote the efficient use of forages.
Wow.
And they do several things. One's an event coming up next week, but they also will do summer tours.
Okay.
Usually they're associated, well, the most consistent one has been associated with Sheep Day, which is a Ohio Sheep Improvement Association event. But the Friday before that, Sheep Day is always a Saturday in summer. The Friday before that, the Ohio Foraging and Grassland Council does a bus tour around the area wherever Sheep Day is hosted.
Okay. So that moves around the area, the region.
Moves around the state. But the bus tour kind of focuses on different grazing operations, focused on small ruminants, because it's associated with Sheep Day.
Right.
But so it kind of moves around, and that's been really successful.
Excellent, excellent. Is the council a organization that promotes research or supports funding of research or educational programs or interaction? I'm getting into, is it a membership organization?
It's a membership
or a check-off
organization.
of any? There's probably not a way to...
No check-off.
Okay.
You know, in forages, most of the products are livestock products.
Absolutely.
Something else.
Yeah.
You know, we do have some true forage producers, hay producers, silage.
Okay.
And they are represented on the council, but you know, everybody else is marketing their forage
through the livestock.
Through another product.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it makes perfect sense. I'm sure there's lots of overlap between the Cattlemen's Association and the Sheep Association.
There is.
I don't know whether there is a goat association in Ohio, boar goat?
Dairy goat, boar goat, there's multiple goat associations.
Excellent, excellent. So I'm sure there's a fair overlap, but obviously the success of those animals is contingent on what they're fed, and hence the need to try to improve grassland, understand grassland. I don't think that maybe, and this is just being presumptuous on my part, although I'm a native of Ohio and farmed at one time or another, you know, kind of pasture land, grassland, hay is a little bit secondary when we think of it relative to corn, soybeans, wheat, you know, those traditional row crops and cash crops that we grow. So I think this emphasis on hay, it will respond to better management, better nutrient, better scheduling of the harvest, if that is grazing even.
The response of grasses or forages to a management change can and sometimes double yields.
Wow.
So it's something that was always on the back burner. It wasn't the primary crop you sold. You are always marketing it through something else.
Right.
So you know, it wasn't necessarily the focus. But spending time on it and focusing on it can increase the productivity of the farm.
Absolutely.
And it can also decrease the cost of operation. We can work with farmers and reduce their break-even cost, or cost to produce beef or lamb or even hay with management. And so they're not adding a lot of fixed cost, input cost. Now, time and labor, it's a lot more thought than actual hard labor. So so it's more of the management, the benefit to management or response to management, and we can reduce the cost and make farms more profitable.
Absolutely, that's exciting. And I don't know of any farmer that doesn't want more and be more efficient and more productive.
Considering the economic outlook we saw Tuesday, it's focusing on cost is going to be.
It's never far away.
No,
it's never far away. The good times are great, and I know beef industry just went through magnificent, almost unheard of, unbelievable. Prices for cattle and so forth, but what goes up tends to come down. You still have to deal with it, and you get near those cost of production again.
Right, and unfortunately, what we, from some of the economic forecasts, the input costs have not come down associated with the revenue side.
Absolutely.
So
bigger lag behind that. Absolutely. Well, I think that's good background, Jeff, to talk about the next annual meeting of the Forage and Grassland Council, and kind of what's on tap a week or so from today.
Now the annual meeting is typically in February. It's a Friday. It happens to be next Friday, so it's the 3rd. In the last 7 or 8 years, it's been held at the administration building of the Ohio Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
And
big auditorium there.
big auditorium, plenty of space. It's a full day event. The program starts around 9:30 and goes to about 3.
Okay.
Generally, we have a internet or nationally known speaker.
Okay.
Give several presentations.
Oh, wow.
And in there, mixed with that, we'll have some reports from research results from Ohio. So some relevant things that your university is working on in the forage field. And we have producer talks.
Wow.
Probably one of the most attended sessions are the actual producer talks, talking about their operation. It tends to be more of a things they're doing and things they've tried.
Yeah.
So those are interspersed throughout the day.
Excellent. Excellent.
Because
Are you able to reveal who the new, the internationally known?
well, the nationally known is Kim Cassida.
Okay.
She's a forage specialist from Michigan State.
Okay.
She's been doing quite a bit of work recently with grass finishing.
All right.
And that's a market, a viable market. It's not necessarily for everybody. My background in grazing management, I would encourage producers who are thinking about that to understand that the management of that grazing operation is probably the most difficult to accomplish.
Okay.
But it is a viable option.
Okay.
There is market demand for the product. It's still kind of a niche, but it
Maybe
can be
just
profitable.
Just so that I understand this, what you're talking about, and maybe some of our audience would appreciate, just share with us when we say grass-fed beef. Am I saying the right thing?
You are.
And that will show up in the meat case on the packages, grass-fed beef, or on a restaurant menu. And my understanding would be that you're going to gain a premium price for this product as a beef producer.
Right.
But the trick is to get cattle to finish that are palatable, right? On an all forage diet.
The digestion of forages in the rumen do not necessarily lend themselves to a high marbling carcass.
Right.
And the American consumer values, we put a premium on the choice, the high choice, the prime product. And we can get that more efficiently with feeding grains. So the feedlot industry is geared toward that. Our beef industry is the bulk of our beef industry is geared toward that. It is more of a challenge with the feed stuff of forages. The byproducts of that digestion do not necessarily go toward marbling. Okay, and it's just more of a challenge to get to that.
Right.
Now there are consumers that prefer grass-fed.
Okay.
But they're not the main
Right.
consumers.
Yeah, right. But that's the way our food system has gone.
Right.
There are lots of market segments.
Right.
And I think the idea that there's more naturally produced, typical from old times and real old times, but the idea that the product itself, the beef that is consumed, is it lower in fat? Is that one of the thoughts in terms of the health benefits?
Actually, that's one of the most consistent claims they can make.
Okay.
Is it's lower in overall fat. It's a leaner product.
Yeah.
But from a producer standpoint, you're giving up the speed of getting a product to market because the animal's growing slower. It's going to take longer to get to the end product. The other aspect is if it's mismanaged, you can end up with an undesirable product. And that's one of the challenges. That's why I say grass finishing for market is the hardest grazing management thing to do, because it's a fairly fine line.
Right. And I think, to put it in layman's terms, most people, even though they might appreciate the lower fat content, they don't want that piece of steak on the plate or roast to have to chew it like shoe leather.
They still want a good eating experience.
Yes, absolutely. And because at least more and more, I've just noticed, that beef is more of a special treat in more cases than, when I was younger.
Right.
And because relative to, and consumers know this well, you can buy pork and chicken for a whole lot less per pound than you can beef. So beef becomes a little bit more special in the diet, and for special occasions, it seems. And as you say, it comes back to, you want to enjoy that, what you've paid a premium price for. And that even comes back even at a higher level, because in order to justify this longer finish time to get a product to sell, producers needs to be compensated for all that extra management and time, it seems like. Well, I took you down that rabbit trail, but I think our audience certainly be interested that the beef industry, along with all of agriculture, continues to adapt to consumer preferences. And I think that sometimes that gets lost, and that when there becomes critical mass, producers are more than willing to try to supply that type of product. And this is a good example. And you're working with a couple of other good examples in terms of goat meat. Who would have thought that we would sit and even think about driving through southern Ohio and seeing herds of goats, but that's an up and coming thing.
Goats, it's with our growing ethnic populations in the state, a lot of them have come from parts of the world where goat was their primary meat source, and that's what they're familiar with, and that's what they want.
Absolutely.
And so the farmers have responded. And that's, goats, if I remember correctly, they're the fastest growing livestock segment. Now, part of it was because they were small to start with. And
those percentages, from a small base number, it looks big.
Looks big, but there are multiple good operations across the state now.
And goat's milk is another product there's interest in.
Goat's milk. Actually, when I was in Mara County, I worked with a sheep dairy.
Wow.
That produced cheese.
Wow.
And so there's even goats and sheep. Cheese is the fluid market infrastructure is not
conducive to
here in the state of Ohio, but the ability to produce cheese from that product, which also gives you more shelf life, and able to spread out your distribution throughout the year, is a viable alternative for many.
Absolutely. Well, can you maybe touch on, and it may kind of come back to the council and the program that the council does and the activities of the council, but we have our Jackson Research Station, not very far from Piketon here, with people that know Southern Ohio, and quite a beef operation over there, but really there's a good bit of forage research, or is there? Maybe you could touch on to the extent that you can, Jeff. Might be putting you on the spot, but...
I'm remembering everything they're doing at Jackson. And I won't be able to tell you everything they're doing at Jackson. The beef herd there was, a lot of the research had been done with reproduction. There have been multiple forage-related trials there over time. Streamside, warm season grasses, various annuals, grazing management. We looked at some products on some forages to stimulate growth. Getting specific on what's currently there, I'm going to be inadequate in that. Scott will probably call me later. Scott Payne.
Well, I think the thing to do would be to get him on the program and let him talk about it. I think he's referring to Scott, who's, pardon me, but I can't come up with a last name for Scott.
Scott Payne.
Scott Payne, help me out, Jeff.
He's the farm manager.
Absolutely, at Jackson at this point, and that might be an opportunity for a later program. But we certainly are involved at Jackson, and there's Beef Field Day there, and I'm sure that this topic of grazing turns out to be part of that.
There's usually during the beef and forage field night. It's probably one of the larger beef events, annual beef events in southern Ohio. There's always a wagon tour and stops in the pasture fields presenting topics related to grazing management. I've been stuck out in the middle of a pasture field talking on more than one occasion.
Well, Jeff, I know we're getting just a few minutes left, but maybe if you want to take a couple minutes and talk about how important forage and grasses are to the beef, dairy, and sheep industry. I don't know if you have further comments on that. We've touched on that. Obviously, it's the base of the production process as far as inputs. You need a land base. But beyond that, do you want to make any further comments there?
Well, forages make up pasture ground, and permanent pasture ground in the state of Ohio make up 6% of the land mass. And that's just what's classified as permanent. There's other classifications. So it's actually larger than that, but the numbers get a little fuzzy.
Okay. Okay.
And being able to manage that efficiently, I've worked with producers who, when they started a grazing management program, were producing around 2.5 tons per acre harvestable per year, and by making changes in their management, are now consistently above 5 tons. And if you think about what that means, it means they can feed more animals.
Yeah.
And
I mean, just in a linear fashion, which the way my brain works, you could double the number of animals that you could carry on the same plot of land.
Now, we still have a few challenges because it doesn't all grow the same every day. So, even hay harvest is an important aspect of overall farm management. But, there is that potential.
Right.
And it exists here without many additional inputs.
Right. Right.
So
Great.
it's an area that I'm still interested in, even though I got the administrative position currently. But it's an area that just needs constant reminders, and a lot of times it's just little tweaks to the way they manage their forage.
Yeah, because we at least an old term is pasture improvement, and it's not as if you have to tear everything up and start from bare ground once again. That many things can be improved through processes that maybe you want to share a couple.
Actually, with most of the farmers I work with initially, we don't necessarily plant anything new or tear anything up. It's planting fence posts and moving, and those are temporary fence posts that can be moved multiple times.
Right.
And we make more improvements by just that than we can do with restarting a pasture field.
Wow. I thought the first thing you would mention was adding some fertilizer.
Well,
and that probably comes along.
That's crucial, and based on soil tests.
Right.
A lot of pasture fields I know of, in working with farmers, when's the last time they fertilized? And thinking back in their memory, they mentioned Grandpa. Which may have been a little while.
Yeah.
So it can be an improvement, and forages respond quickly
to fertilizer.
So you see that benefit.
And this is probably getting more technical, but just for my benefit, on grass forages, do they need an annual application of nitrogen?
Depends if you have legumes in the mix.
Okay.
What we recommend is about a 35% legume.
Okay, with the grasses.
With the grass. It's not going to affect the animal bloat at that level. So it's safe for the animals. But at that level, there is no benefit to additional nitrogen from research trials.
Wow.
So just having a proper mix out
Mix
there
of the-
actually reduces that input cost.
Absolutely.
Now, if you don't have those, grasses respond readily to an application of nitrogen.
Right. And I'm sure even our homeowners in towns and areas, that aren't growing beef understand when they fertilize their yard, they got
Right.
more mowing to do, and that's a
Yeah.
direct response to that
Right.
nitrogen that's in a lot of lawn fertilizers. Well, Jeff, I know that we're out of time for this session, but you've made it very, very interesting and a pleasure to visit with about the importance of the beef industry and the upcoming program in about a week on February 3rd. And I would give you opportunity if you wanted to share your email if someone is hearing about the council's meeting for the first time and wanted to get in touch for further information. They could either come to us and we can pass it
Right.
along, but if you want to share, that'd be good.
They actually do have a website, ofgc.org.
Oh, easy enough.
Easy enough. It's hosted with the American Foraging and Grassland Council,
Okay.
which they're affiliated with, and all the information about the meeting would be there.
Excellent. Good pointer. Well, I think we will wrap it up for today. Jeff, thank you again, and we look forward to being back next week with another South Centers Chat. Until then, we hope you have a good week ahead, and
Thank you.
will join us again.
Thanks.